Welcome and thanks for joining me for part 2 of this historic program on the pro-life legacy of Jack and Barbara Willke. During our last episode, we learned about decades of pro-life education and activism by the Willkes and their handbook on abortion that taught millions of people about the horrible realities of abortion. And we learned of their new book documenting the history of the pro-life movement. Today, you'll hear about Dr. Willke's continued pioneering educational work and how he's confident the younger generation will take up the torch and put an end to abortion. Stay with us. Jack and Barbara Willke were married for nearly 65 years, parents to 6 children, 22 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. Throughout the years, they've been at the epicenter of pro-life activism and have done more for the world's unborn babies than anyone in history. They spent years traveling and speaking together on sex education and abortion. Dr. Willke served as president of the National Right to Life Committee for 10 years and helped found the International Right to Life Federation in 1984. Then in 1991, Jack and I joined forces to found Life Issues Institute. Its mission is to change the hearts and minds of people through pro-life education.
My thought at that point was that I would build a small organization that would be the basis for my lecturing dates and that sort of stuff. Well, it has grown a little bit, and you can answer some of that, Brad.
Yeah, it's changed quite a bit, but your message and mission was still education, was it not?
Yes, basically it was education. That seemed to me to be the basis for everything else. If we can educate people that this is in fact a baby, and that abortion kills a baby, and that it does all these bad things to women, we're going to win this battle.
Through Life Issues Institute, Dr. Willke had the opportunity to conduct crucial, seminal research regarding abortion. For years, he had used the argument that abortion kills and harms babies, but the new research consisted of market testing that provided a new argument for pro-lifers. Abortion doesn't just kill babies, it hurts women.
It doesn't only kill her baby, it hurts her.
And out of that, we coined a phrase, if you will, that was put on bumper strips, billboards. What was that?
That message was, love them both. Women were, in a sense, ignored. But then we said it not only kills the baby, it hurts the mother. Okay, that threw a whole new light on it. And that became more and more evident as time went on. One night, we were in Des Moines. I had lectured that day. Our host came to me and he said, Jack, he said, look, there's a young lady who wants to talk to you. She was dressed like a gypsy, and she had this sad look on her face. She sat down and she told me that she had been pregnant and had been talked into an abortion, had been injured by the abortion, that she had bled for some time, finally gone to a real doctor instead of the abortionist, and he had pulled out the remains of the baby that was still inside of her. She ended up having her female organs removed and barely survived. She said, I guess I'm not supposed to talk about this, but I don't want other girls to go through this. Can I help you?
It changed the equation, didn't it?
We had a National Right to Life meeting coming up in a few weeks. I said, would you speak on a major platform and tell everybody your story? And she did. She was an absolute instant sensation. And the other thing this did was encourage other women to do the same thing. So what that grew out of that was the movement, abortion hurts women.
Coming up, we'll hear stories from the history of the pro-life movement. Dr. Marie Myers Willke is the oldest of the Willke's 6 children. She's now married with 4 children of her own, has 2 grandchildren, and practices internal medicine. Marie has played a key role in her parents' new and final book, Abortion in the Pro-Life Movement, An Inside View. It gives an autobiographical look and frontline perspective of the history of the movement. Marie knew how important pro-life education was to her parents, and the book shares how they used it to establish a global pro-life movement.
They felt education was the key to everything. That people are basically good, and if you give them the facts and teach them the truth, they will make the right decision. They knew that the whole system was geared against us. I mean, the whole culture was heading pro-abortion, and we didn't have money, we didn't have media, we didn't have anything. You know, we just had the desire to help the babies and to help the mothers. And they knew that you had to mobilize people. You had to turn the direction the country was going. The job looked overwhelming in the beginning. Most people would just say, it can't be done, we've lost, we should give up. And they weren't willing to do that. They said, no, you keep fighting.
In the book, Dr. and Mrs. Willke share never-before-told stories that help set the foundation of the movement and the history they witnessed. Dr. Willke even recalls seeing the statues come down in Red Square during the Russian Revolution in Moscow. They had accepted an invitation from the Soviet Academy of Sciences to lecture on human sexuality. Gorbachev was in jail and Boris Yeltsin had taken charge. The Willke's cab driver told them all of Moscow was in turmoil and the crowds were forming on Red Square, but they chose to proceed anyway. What they experienced was profound history in the making.
It was a huge crowd, and they're around a statue, and it's one of the founders of the Communist Party. And there's men climbing on the statue. And there's one big ribbon, I guess it was, around the neck of the statue, trailing down. And I says, what's going on? They're going to take the statue down. They've had a revolution. They don't want the communists anymore. Well, it turned out that night they did take the statue down. And it took 2 trailer trucks to take this huge statue and cart it off to a cemetery somewhere. We then walked past it and up into Red Square, which was deserted. And what was going on was that in the lower square, way over there, they were having a celebration to sort of anoint the new premier. And this Russian orator was coming across, and will you look at that? Top of the wall, 2 flags. One was the Red Star, and the other was the Russian Republic, the one that had been supplanted by Russian communism. The guy who was speaking stops, pause, music. Gounod's Ave Maria.
On Red Square. Did you ever think that would be possible?
Even now, it sort of blows me away.
Of this book on the history of the movement, do you have a favorite part in there?
Who can say what was the favorite thing? Perhaps Reagan's election might have been one of those landmark times. Actually, the best one was the one who immediately succeeded George Bush the First. And I had gotten to know George. He was vice president. And that's a conversion story too. And when Bush became president, we were literally on a first-name basis. And I had full access to the White House. I was president of the National Right to Life at that point and was in Washington. During his 4-year term, anytime I asked him to veto a pro-abortion bill, he did. And that was never quite repeated by any president since.
Now, in addition to the text that's provided, there are a lot of photographs documenting the history also, aren't there?
Yeah, there's some phenomenal pictures, and it was history. They're Oval Office pictures, they're pictures with the Pope, they were just like all the rest of us. The difference was they did something, you know. They didn't give up, they pushed hard and they did something. It's a fun book. It's fun to read their stories.
In a moment, we'll hear advice for the next generation of pro-lifers. Peggy Hartshorn is the president of Heartbeat International, a network of pregnancy resource centers. Throughout her career, Peggy has continued to be influenced by the work of Jack and Barbara Willke. Their teachings on human sexuality have had a direct impact on the work she does with pregnancy resource centers and other pregnancy help services.
The root of the abortion problem, that is our misunderstanding of human sexuality or God's plan for our sexuality, to me that is the root of our problem. I have the blessing, and we have the blessing in the pregnancy help part of the movement, to really get down to the core of the problem, to help the girls and women who come to us understand the beauty of their fertility, the beauty of their gift of sexuality, and how to use it properly in that wonderful relationship of marriage between a man and a woman.
How have you seen Heartbeat International evolve and change over the years from its first beginning?
We have wonderful training materials. We've put most of our materials now on the internet, so Heartbeat can provide education and training all over the world via the internet. Heartbeat International now has our 24/7 call center called Option Line. We are working with 500 to 600 contacts a day from people in need all over the United States. And it's the heart that is conveyed. It's the love that's conveyed that allows them to have the confidence to come into a pregnancy center. And there they meet another human being who cares and loves them unconditionally. And that's what really we do in the centers, and we've done it from the beginning. So while things have changed dramatically in many ways in terms of technology and medical services, in many ways they've remained the same.
Why is it important for people to understand the history of the pro-life movement as we go forward?
We'll learn from our history, and we'll learn some of what we did well, some of what we could have done better, and hopefully remedy that in the future. I think it's also really important to understand how the pro-life movement started and how God really worked through ordinary people in ordinary situations to accomplish something that was really extraordinary. I hope that will be the real inspiration for the next generation.
Hannah Bell is the founder and president of Hannah Bell Ministries, focused on awakening the younger generation to a life of purpose. When Hannah was a young girl, her mother took her to visit a local pregnancy resource center, and they began regularly volunteering. Hannah volunteers with 40 Days for Life and has seen the impact one person can have in the life of an unborn child. She encourages young people to get involved in the pro-life fight and has seen them rally to help pass crucial pro-life legislation in her home state of Texas.
And what we need and what is happening, I believe, is a narrative shift in our culture. We've gone from, of course, Roe versus Wade being passed to seeming like abortion was becoming the norm, and you didn't talk about abortion in college classes. But I think we've seen that tide change to where you have student life groups on campus, you have student groups in high schools. So the narrative is changing, and more people that are involved in helping change that narrative, the more you impact culture, where individuals just get this subconscious sense that maybe it's not cool to be pro-choice anymore. I think about HB2 this summer. All the people that came out from all over the nation, there were even some young girls from Spain who were helping out with the Students for Life. All those people that came, if they would not have come, we would not have been able to turn the tide of having that bill passed. Learning where your place is in history has a dynamic impact on giving perspective and wisdom. And also it gives the strength to say, hey, we're not in this alone. There are those who have gone before us who have fought a good fight, and we're just promoting and bringing that torch even forward to our generation and those after us.
What is your advice to this new generation of pro-lifers that will take the ball and likely cross the finish line?
Be faithful to the issue, Teach your children by your example. Don't fight with each other. You each have a place to play.
The next generation of pro-lifers coming up is very, very passionate, and I'm very excited about that. The growth of the college campus pro-life chapters has been absolutely phenomenal. So I'm excited about their passion for the mission. It's interesting for me to see that they are learning in the same way often that I did back in the early 70s. The visuals of the victims of abortion is very important in helping them understand the reality of abortion, as well as creating that passion in doing something about it.
I am very optimistic that we're going to win this battle, because you have a generation that is ignited with passion to see Roe versus Wade and abortion ended in our generation. Then you have the older generation who's imparting wisdom and has laid a foundation of how to successfully bring this about. In addition to research, you have all these components coming together to shape a beautiful masterpiece. And I think it's going to come to a climax where it says enough's enough, and you're going to see abortion ended in my generation.
When we return, we'll hear Dr. Willke's thoughts on the future of the movement and the legacy he has built. Jack and Barbara Willke have established an amazing legacy of pro-life education and activism. They traveled the globe meeting world leaders as they work to protect innocent human life on all continents. They'll leave a remarkable legacy for the next generation of pro-lifers who will tirelessly work to see an end to abortion and renew hope for the future. You're optimistic about this nation and the future of abortion. Do you think that that includes the reversal of Roe versus Wade?
I do. One, I don't think Roe versus Wade has very solid footing. I think if you look legally, the perspective that it's a fundamental right is not in the Constitution. And I think it's ironic that they would try to use due process through privacy to create a right that's not there. And what is happening with the right of the baby in the womb. Then secondly, the narrative and culture is changing. And you're starting to see people creating cultures of life. So the narrative changing, strategic application of argument, and everything that's happening on the state political level, finding its head at the Supreme Court, I think you're going to see Roe versus Wade overturned.
Years from now, what kind of legacy do you think people will feel that the Willkes left behind?
Well, I've heard people call Dr. and Mrs. Willke the parents of the pro-life movement, the grandparents of the pro-life movement. I believe the legacy will be seen in the generation after generation after generation of people who will look back on that era of the late 60s and the early 70s and say, what wonderful roots we have and what wonderful examples we have because of people like Dr. and Mrs. Willke who were raised up at that point and who laid the foundation for what we have today.
Do you anticipate, or at least leave the door open, for another generation of the Willke name to continue working in the pro-life movement?
Certainly all of our children are very strongly pro-life. Our one adopted daughter, maybe more than any of the others, because she says if it weren't for Grandma and Grandpa, I wouldn't be alive. My mom was going to have an abortion, and she heard that this was a baby, and that's why I'm here. I would hope that they would continue it, and in fact, Mom and Dad always said that they would not live to see Roe versus Wade reversed, but their children would.
The baton's been pretty much passed between you and I at Life Issues Institute. What advice do you have for me as we go into the future?
Well, not much. You're doing things I didn't do or didn't dream of doing. And that's one of my achievements, was selecting you.
I know it's probably not something in your generation that is said between men, but I want you to know that through our relationship, I've grown to love you and Barbara as parents, so you feel very much like family. As we look at the legacy carrying on, it's a lonesome thought to do it without Barbara or you, but as you said, it's an issue that's bigger than any of us. and something that we need to continue.
I've had the privilege, and Barbara has, of being able to organize and create a legacy, a movement that's building on itself. They're doing new things in new ways. There's new challenges, you meet them. I think the current movement to stop abortion after 20 weeks will ultimately succeed. And the nation will learn that we can live without abortion.
Abortion is the most controversial issue of our time, and documenting the history of the pro-life movement has been a monumental task. Driving much of that history has been Jack and Barbara Willke. But I must admit, I'm a little more than biased. While working side by side with these icons of the movement, they've become like parents to me. And as one legacy ends, another begins in the fresh and enthusiastic faces of America's young people. Yes, we're moving on to victory. Thanks for watching. This week, my special gift to you is this remarkable book about the journey of protecting the sanctity of life. Abortion and the Pro-Life Movement, An Inside View offers powerful stories and history from the mother and father of the pro-life movement. Visit our website at facinglife.tv to enter for your chance to receive one as my gift to you while supplies last. Once there, check out the available resources related to this program and find out how you can order a copy of this special 2-part episode on DVD and Blu-ray to share with others.